Deep in the heart of the Kusa-10 sector of the Euclid galaxy, in the Dantaba system, lies a very unassuming planet. For spinning ever slowly round its sun, we find Sirocco. With no water and a thin atmosphere made of dihydrogen and sulfurine, it's not what one might call ideal for the formation of life. These elements make the atmosphere abnormally low, but that doesn't mean that the temperatures follow suit. With such a thin atmosphere, the heat of the sun bakes the sand in a harsh glow. But that doesn't mean life hasn't found a way around it. In the underbrush of the cacti, we find our first denizen of Sirocco. Oceophossa cervicornis, the horned bone badger, named for its rather peculiar markings around its back and face. Although fierce in looks, this creature is hardly a threat, much of its pattern making up for reflecting the light to keep itself cool. Their food source is just the many flowers and buds that line the cacti and bushes of the desert. This one, however, isn't searching for food. They are searching for their mate. And as the sun sets, one might think this would become difficult. But the bone badger has once again played its evolutionary hand well. Under a green desert sky and cool air, the bone badger shows off its most decorated adaptation. Two stalks with bioluminescent ends make for a very easy way to find your way in the dark. Her keen sense of smell plus her natural lanterns will easily help her find her mate and her young. She hears something out in the night. It's not another bone badger. This creature is slightly smaller and sports a nasty pack of spines for protection. This is an Ursiostrum aculeatus, the prickly desert bear, and it is certainly a sight to behold. Another herbivorous creature of Sirocco, these strange beasts are mostly nocturnal and stay in groups of 4 or 5. They will spend nights going through the bushes of the desert, sipping the nectar from flowers. Indeed, these odd-looking creatures are the pollinators of the dusty planet. Once an area is clear of nectar, they move on to another patch, keeping the ecosystem healthy. Strange they may be, but their importance to the desert cannot be overstated. A true testament to the adaptability of the life on Sirocco. And off in the night, a show is beginning. One we would be sore to miss. The flower flies, Petaloptera insectorum, more commonly known as flower bugs, bob and weave through the night sky. Their mating dance is one that they only do under the light of another planet's rings. Scientists believe that this behavior may be a form of mimicry of the rings, or it may mean something we can't possibly imagine. Regardless of meaning, the dance is gorgeous and a wondrous sight to behold. floating much slower in the night. A giant moves. A floating watcher, one of the oddest creatures of Sirocco, floats using inflated bladders in its body. These fill with hot air during the day, while they hide in holes, and then allow them to fly during the cold evenings. A familiar face emerges. The bone badger has finally tracked down her mate. And her pup. At only 2 months, this pup bone badger needs to stay near its parents. It wouldn't have any way of defending itself from predators at this age. And just over the hill, a hunter watches in the night. Larger than the bone badger's mother, this creature hunts baby bone badgers regularly. Both parents being there is a blessing. The Styratus spinovenator, the spineback hunter, the alpha predator of these dunes. Silent as the grave, they can often strike their prey before they even know it was there. Lucky the pup had its parents nearby. As the sun breaks the horizon, the heat of the day returns with malice. And across this dust-stricken landscape, a scene unfolds. A sound is heard that only means death. This watcher is elderly and unable to find a hole to hide from the sun. As his bladders shrink, so too does any hope of survival. A weakening call. Soon this giant will feed the desert. But not before the desert prepares the meal. A quite sad and brutal end to such a magnificent beast. Yet death is only the beginning in a harsh surviving planet. Bodies become food. Food becomes energy. Energy that will go on to fuel the next generation of life. In the vast blue of the Nisarate system, we find Montara, with its face covered in lakes and oceans. Years on Montara are slow, equaling 22 regular months to orbit its star. Its atmosphere lets heat go due to its high levels of dioxide compared to other planets. The water contains ammonia, making it impossible to freeze easily. Which is perfect for those native life forms that have evolved to process it. Wandering the beach, we find this large, bright orange creature. This is a herd of Saxipes rufospinus, or ruby-spined cows. A wild type of herding beast, known for their bright coloration. Highly social animals, these beasts use their back fins to absorb heat and then release it on themselves or their fellow ruby spine. Like a personal heater, these cows can easily keep warm as long as they have a good source of food, but that isn't the case for this herd. They are starting their semi-monthly migration after spending some time in one area eating the local frostwort. This area has been picked clean, and this other creature doesn't help. Meet Saxipes caeruleus, the domesticated blue-scaled cow. A relative of the ruby variety, they tend to be more solitary, docile, and bigger. And what comes with size is a large appetite, specifically for the stockbulb bush, one of the ruby spine's other main food sources. They were originally bred by farmers, but after herds were released into the wild, the domestic cows caused food scarcity problems for the ruby-spined cows. Practically invasive, this larger subspecies could outcompete the ruby spines to extinction without interference from conservationists. The ruby-spined herd must start to move. Night waits for no one, and as the female cows call for their young to join back with the herd, none will leave without the others. A complex cacophony of calls organizes the entire herd into coordination. They must now leave to find bushes that they need not share. With night approaching, the herd listens to the sounds of the night. And what a horrible night to be migrating. Above the frozen land flies a mating group of Erythropterus tricardia, the lover's eagle. The name is a misnomer, as nothing involved in their ceremony contains love. They fly in a whirlwind of circles, a test of endurance to impress a mate. The males will sometimes fly for days, only to die and fall into the cold water below. But while doing the flight, these hunters would leave the herd alone, their focus entirely on the task at hand. The luckiest break for the timid herd. As they cross the tundra and forests of Montara, the cows spot a sleeping giant. The great blue Tuscant has a strange behavior in its eldest members. The elder of these giant eyeless creatures can no longer be conscious during the night due to the temperatures and their age. So using a form of hibernation, they allow their bodies to freeze solid, a statue throughout the night. Nothing on Montara can penetrate their shells, so they aren't in any sort of danger. But as the sunrise approaches, the elder Tuscans begin to stir. Until they can finally begin their day. The herd isn't afraid, as they know Tuscans are harmless, if not a little large. They are the giants of Montara's plains, and they spend their days marching the snow-covered fields and forest, and using their tusks. The large tusks on their face being an expert tool for digging up roots of plants. And they have very little understanding of personal space, as our cameraman found out. a giant to be admired for its calm and gentle demeanor. Back with the ruby-spined cows, they can hear something familiar. It's the sound of water hitting a beach, and with it, carrying the scent of fresh frostwort. As they move through the forest, they see other good plants, making this a very good potential location. They call to each other, communicating their interest in this location. A very social creature indeed. With a call of excitement, it seems that the herd has agreed on a spot. With large mineral crystals lining the beach, it's sure to be perfect for the herd. In spite of local company, the Monteran shore wolf is mainly herbivorous, but recent studies have shown that they do on occasion hunt baby ruby spines. The problem is numbers. With the parents around, the wolf is mostly at a loss, instead needing to find its nutrients elsewhere. Indeed, this creature is more aptly described as a scavenger omnivore. As with most animals on Montara, they stay solitary, meaning life is never fully easy for such a beast. With an omnivorous diet, however, it should suit the wolf well in this freezing environment. Every world is always changing. New things move in. Old things move out. It is our adaptability to said change that determines our ability to survive. Uvudabult, a system in the Cusitan sector that houses the ringed planet Mycotoxia. Poisonous storms plague the planet's surface after many hundreds of years of changing climate. The atmosphere used to be dehydrated in oxygen, but the planet has since been filled with chlorine and other trace elements. This dramatic change wasn't random, and was spurred on by many sources. But regardless of the source, its effects on the wildlife is still dramatic. In its gaseous, spore-filled clouds, we find quite a sad sight. A large beast with white scales on its back and a red coloration. It quickly stands out in the vast green storm that rages on the planet's surface. This is a Rubicanthosaurus, specifically Platithorax, the armored rubisaur. Rubisaurs used to be a wide and vast ecological group, filling the niche of large herbivorous megafauna. However, this is one of the last of its kind. Thanks to the many fungi species on the planet, the air is full of toxic spores. Changes in the soil made much of this planet not well suited for the group, even if the visage of the poisonous storms is a beautiful green haze. but the conditions on Mycotoxia are perfect for something like this. A Bovosaurus capitascutum, another armored beast who sports some unique survival tactics. Along with their very obvious shell-like structure, they have a fascinating use for the armor around their head. The interior of their armored head has air cavities with many twists and turns, and small hairs. All of these act as a sort of natural filter to the spores in the air. Similar to a gas mask, but wholly unique to this beast. They move solitarily, only meeting others of their kind when it's time to mate. They have built up such a tolerance to the fungi on the surface, and they spend their days finding smaller fungi to eat. Their size, in comparison to the Rubisaur, is much more suited for the environment as well. They are a very silent creature, making very little noise across this landscape. The day is ending. And so too the sun moves beyond the horizon, darkening to the night, which will prove helpful to the most destructive creature on Mycotoxia. As toxic rain falls, a large number of very, very strange creatures emerge from underground. Terminites, an arthropod-like creature that has been changing the planet's surface for the past 2,500 years or so, as far as scientists can tell. They are gigantic and destructive when building their nests, as their size allows for entire mountains or mountain ranges to be overrun with a single nest. Slowly, these strange, evolved beasts are turning the entire planet into their nest. It is no wonder that the Rubisaur is struggling to survive. Herbivorous aliens, sometimes in the hundreds, feeding on fungi across the globe, which they use for bioluminescence. Although quite an impressive display, this male Bovosaur doesn't seem to be afraid, as it knows it's not their prey. The chittering sound of the terminites overruns the night. The Rubisaur is still moving, trying desperately to find others of its kind. It calls over the years, are answered less and less by a mate. And as the sun begins to creep over the horizon, another well-adapted beast wanders. A smaller, furry creature sniffs around for smaller arthropod-like creatures to eat. The dull-faced toxolion, named for its peculiar-looking face. Scientists named it for its strange eyes, but recent studies have shown those eyes to be quite poor, almost walking directly into the path of the Rubisaur. How embarrassing. The Rubisaur wants nothing to do with this beast, and the toxolion agrees, using its keen sense of vibration to know the size of the Rubisaur isn't something that it wants to be near. The Rubisaur watches on while the toxolion forages for fungi in the brush. The toxolion is extremely well built for this environment. Spore-filled air, moist rain allows for fungi growth on its fur. This changes the top half of its fur to color match the rest of the ground and plants around it. Camouflage for this poisonous world. They are otherwise calm animals, but solitary. Social groups meet to mate, but not for much else. As with many of the other creatures on Mycotoxia, this just is the way you survive. The storms have returned, and our Rubisa friend is tiring. Are there others out there in the fog? In the mist? In the wind? Perhaps. But it may end up being a fruitless search. The Rubisa is a relic of an ancient era. An era that is reaching its end. Though instinct will continue to push them, the odds of Rubisas surviving this changing planet are slim. This creature will disappear into history, into myth and into legend, unless we, the caring few, document their wonder and their lives. That is why it is crucial for all biologists to document the life in Euclid. Out here in the vast blue of the Vivicilco system, we find Elesium IV, with its red continents and blue oceans. It is a tropical planet, with humid storms that cover its surface. Life, however, has thrived immensely on this world. Its dense atmosphere not preventing life from evolving into a multitude of various forms. And here on the shore, we find the long-nosed feather deer. A mother and her young forage through the sands, looking for small-shelled creatures to break open and eat. They are a fascinating life form. But it is not where we shall be exploring today. For deep inside Elesium IV's oceans, we shall find where life began on this quaint world. The oceans on Elesium IV have been here since the earliest days of its existence. And the life that lives all across the planet started here. In order to find these life forms, we must dive deep into the oceans of Elesium IV, where just under the surface, a very beautiful sight can be found on the seafloor. Sunshine coral is a very unique creature that fills a very important role in these oceans. Their light is used as communication, while also being a form of algae that lives just inside of its porous surface. Swimming above this light show, we find the round-toothed snakefish, Ofus aquadentalis, a jawless creature that feeds on the very smallest of creatures that float in the water. Being very slow, gentle creatures, they use their 4 front fins and the tail fluke at the end of their very flexible tail to move very gracefully through the ocean. With no centralized nervous system, they are very simple in their life. Moving, eating, and breeding are all that they know. But being such a simple life form, it is perfect for them, showing that simplicity is sometimes more elegant of a survival tactic. some are far more active. Phantoma aquae, the ocean phantom. In spite of its name, it is quite a harmless creature, only floating and taking in the nutrients from dying other animals as a scavenger. And they are also one of the creatures that become more active at night, when there are many other creatures also active. With 4 large fins for being able to turn on a dime, an armored head, and a giant, gaping, toothed mouth. The snakefish have truly wandered into some dangerous territory. The beast goes in for a strike, and yet it continues to miss. That is because this creature is an eyeless Goliath Fogg, an eyeless predator that uses its ability to sense electromagnetic fields around it to sense where its prey is. So why are the snakefish giving the Fogg such a problem? It is because of a survival tactic that the snakefish have evolved over all these years. The snakefish are able to generate an electromagnetic field just directly around them, creating a very strong signal just outside of their reach. The Fogg continues to strike and continues to miss. As it continues to swim, it continues to get more annoyed. And keeps getting more interested in our cameraman. Foggs are thankfully completely nocturnal, so as the sun rises, we know that safety is upon us. Elesium IV's oceans in the day are a very calm sight. Snakefish doing their dance. Red seaweed flows in the ocean currents, and a school of creatures begins their morning swim. The toxic albinose paddlefish, Albus Nasus toxicus, a specific type of grouping fish that swims in these oceans with a very unique movement style. Their long, paddle-like tails help them stay in mostly straight lines, every once in a while spinning in circles as forms of communication. As well as swimming thousands of units per day, these creatures are also incredibly toxic, their scales secreting a type of poison that, if ingested, can cause paralysis and even death. Many of the creatures inside of these oceans have evolved to process it, but tourists every year are still found dead after having tried fishing and eating this creature. As the oceans spread out into the great deep, there are many hundreds of other fish that live within these waters. And out of those hundreds and hundreds of fish species, they all had to evolve from somewhere. This is one of the earliest creatures to evolve on Elesium IV, as far as scientists know. This is a Scarlet Sea Gourman, a type of creature that lives on the bottom of the ocean, and recent genetic testing has proven them to be one of the earliest creatures to have evolved on Elesium IV. In spite of their very simplistic lifestyle, they are the ones who provide the bioluminescent algae for the use of the sunshine coral. Even since the earliest days of this planet, their usefulness in the ecosystem has not changed, and has simply grown to encompass an even larger amount of creatures, making the smallest of creatures have the biggest of impacts. In the Pramusta system, Tempestria sits amongst an orange sky. This planet is volcanic and dying. It has been covered in ashes and volcanic activity for the last 1,000,000 years. That has not slowed down evolution. In fact, one could make the argument that it has only sped it up. And through the ash-filled air, in the burning hot, life on Tempestria has continued to thrive in many strange forms. To film on such a planet takes a lot of risk and bravery. The tectonic activity on this planet, plus its temperatures, make fossilization extremely rare, to nigh impossible. The best thing we can do is document these creatures. Like this one here, whose claws may lead you to believe that she would be dangerous, but far from it. Meet one of the largest misnomers here on Tempestria, the giant horned nightmare, or Serata predator gigas. She is the largest predator living here on Tempestria. But that is no reason to worry, as this large predator will only eat about once every week. And this one clearly has already eaten, its behavior becoming far more docile after it had a full meal. A more active predator watches along the hillside. The shelled forest cat may be a little smaller, but don't let its size fool you. They are known to take down prey up to 4 times their size and then feed upon them for months. With their incredibly powerful jaws and teeth, they can crush right through bone, including having to regenerate their own teeth, which they break fairly often. As another batch of volcanoes erupt to the east, the winds and heat and ash pick up. This female nightmare will have no other choice but to find a cave and bed down for the night if she is ever to find her mate. And as night quickly comes, the storms do not yield, and another well-adapted beast wanders through the smoky night. The stock-eyed Muon is a very peculiar beast, with obvious stock eyes on its head and blackened teeth. One might question this creature's initial appearance. With 4 different gut sacs, they are able to digest all kinds of various plants, regardless of how complex they may be. However, it only does this with the 2 upper sacs, the lower ones housing a very volatile acidic compound that can dissolve metals at the base structure. They have been known to gnaw on the side panels of ships after they have landed, much to the annoyance of many space pilots. With a planet this different, one should also assume that all plant life would well evolve for its environment. The ground beneath us shakes, meaning only one thing for this area: a volcanic cluster. And as they erupt, creatures above the volcanoes appear to fly in a uniformed dance. the maw of Tempestria, we find Aerospicula vermis, the volcanic sky worms. Beautifully majestic and enormous beasts, these creatures fill themselves with helium, with gas sacs throughout their entire body to allow themselves to move and weave through the air above the volcanoes. Scientists are still very unaware as to why these creatures do this, but it has been documented on many occasions, not just when mating. Although mysterious, they are beautiful. And as the skyworms continue their dance, the storm rages on. Out there in the smoky ash, we finally get a look at the namesake of the Horned Nightmare. He may look quite different, but this is a male Serata predator, and the reason that they have the name Horned Nightmare. The extreme sexual dimorphism has been something scientists have really struggled with, as to what its purpose would be. However, most recent studies have shown it to be very useful for them in being able to find their mate through all of this ash and smoke, recognizing silhouettes above anything else. However, this is on the other side of the mountain range that the female is on, putting him very far away indeed. Even with the light of day and a calmed storm, it still is incredibly difficult for them to be able to find their mate if there's an entire mountain between them. He mournfully yells, to no answer. On the other side of the mountain, she continues to do the same. Eventually, through the ash and fog, they may find each other. But the lives of creatures like these is slow and methodical. They may search for a great long time, but eventually, if they are determined, they may live to the next generation on this destructive and fiery planet. On our final episode, we find ourselves in the Iritihagi system, orbiting the planet Cloros. A gem of the Kusiten sector, this tropical world hosts a clean atmosphere and some extremely varied life forms. From cool oceans to warm lakes, to the jungles that cover this planet, there is always something fascinating to find here. In the waters by the shore, small creatures live amongst the sands, who are then eaten by this small creature. Known as sand elephants, these small shelled creatures live on the shores of Cloros' oceans. Karlaq scientists once thought they laid eggs in the water, but recent studies have shown them to be entirely hydrophobic. Instead, captive sand elephants have been known to lay eggs under rocks that are on top of sand. Shy and timid, these small ones don't ever stray too far from the sand. Because when startled, they can quickly burrow underground to hide from potential predators. like this flying beast above. Nimble and quick, this longicoilus draco, or emerald-crested drake, flies on thermals using its membranous wings. And because of their expert build for flying in high winds, they often follow the most unique force on Cloros, the storm. Not a regular storm, it is one tied to a life form on Cloros. And our team was not expecting to see the beast, but we got lucky. Something about the giant burragant makes the storms on Cloros follow it around the planet. Its constant moving makes it extremely difficult to study, much less film. The storm following behind won't end right away. And once it does, the sun returns quickly. And creatures, large and small, come out from their hiding places that they find during the storms. And amongst them, a red spot moves through the jungle. A fearsome-looking face and large claws, this arthropod-like beast walks through the tall grass. Named a quad-clawed devil, Quadramanus diabolus, named for its appearance rather than its behavior. They are quite gentle, some Gek civilizations housing them as pets. And with a diet of fruit and flowers, they crave foods with a high sugar content. They're reluctant to strangers, but have complex social structures. They've been known to make noises that, when analyzed, could be classified as a primitive language. And they graze on grass in between meals to aid in digestion. As they age, these creatures' three-tailed scales grow a very unique pattern. Each devil can recognize each other just by looking at each other's scales, making this an extremely effective communication method for them. This one is smelling for something. They're trying to find water before nightfall. That will be the time for its most unique ritual. In the jungles of Cloros, many life forms call them home. And even in the valleys between the tree lines, other beasts wander. This lazy dog bear sniffs out local flora to its liking. An extremely keen sense of smell, they can sniff out any other creature nearby. They have also been domesticated and used on Viking worlds to control the trade of Geknip, as they can smell it out extremely easily. They live solitary lives, only meeting to mate, but they are ferocious mothers, and will become agitated if you get near their cubs. Watching from the bushes, one of the smallest to call Cloros home. The mini emperor goat is a small two-legged creature covered in soft fur. They are skittish creatures who always travel in small groups for safety. Their noises have been known to play a part in their communication and hint at higher intelligence. With this intelligence, we can introduce our new discovery on Cloros. Social symbiosis. Two species interacting as one. When we started filming this series, documenting the life in Euclid, the hope was always to add to the galactic understanding of these creatures. Now documented for the first time on Cloros, intelligent wild creatures having a primitive society. With the quad-clawed devils present, the emperors fear nothing in the night. While the devil's young can wander freely and safely, safety in numbers proves to be a good strategy. There's no telling what social understanding we still don't know about them. How much these aliens know of the world beyond their planet. We know not the conversations they will have about the universe, or how these interactions will evolve with time. But the knowledge of wild aliens having companionship despite differences make us thus look at our own lives with ever-growing perspective.